Also, speaking of Brooklyn, James Harden won't be going there, but if he did, that wouldn't work. So,
Oh yeah, that reminds me. So what was it? I'm sure like y'all are following along that Harden wants to be traded and Westbrook wants to be traded. Um, and I don't know, these things may or may not be related. Like, what do y'all think about that whole situation?
I think it's a lot of people saying, I think it's a lot of like word of mouth, and some of it might possibly not be true.
Hmm.
But let's say, for instance, it is. I'm not surprised because James Harden can't win there. They don't have the capabilities of winning there. Russell Westbrook, if it's actually true that he wants to leave, he can't blame nobody else to blame it on himself because he was not looking good last year, like at all. Like he looked less explosive. I don't know if he was hurt, but he looked less explosive. Everything that he did well, he did not do well this past year. Uh,
But
and even
he
when it
still
came
got
to
the numbers
shooting, he
though.
did that worse than anything else also. So I just think that I don't know if it's true if they. I just don't know if it's true if they want to leave or not. I think that's what it is. Because
Okay.
like you have all these people, like journalists make up stories. Like no, like it's been known for years that if you got nothing to write about, they would just make something up. Essentially, they have one thing of evidence, and instead of looking for more evidence, they'll go, "Oh, looks like somebody wants to get out of town." You know what I mean? And nowadays, it's not even like credible evidence. It's like somebody bought a house in another city, or someone likes a certain post on Instagram. Oh, they're trying to get out of here. You know what I mean? So I'm not even sure if that point's true. Unfortunately,
I, if I may though, I'm well. Granted, in fairness, I didn't outside of the bubble. I didn't watch Rockets games. Matter of fact, I don't think I even watched the playoff games. But like numbers wise, Westbrook was fine last year. Like he put up what was it? It wasn't a triple double, but it was what 27 points, 7 assists, right at 8 rebounds a game,
Yeah,
and
pretty close. He
1.6
was good.
steals.
Yeah,
Like I mean, his 3 point shooting wasn't good, but it basically never is. So
I think it was more like to me at least, like
mhm.
when I watched them play, it didn't seem synchronized. It didn't seem in sync. It didn't seem, cohesive. Like, yeah, he still got those numbers, but they weren't clean numbers. They weren't as clean as they were in Oklahoma City. And I'm not sure because he wasn't running the team or he had a different position, being the number two option and feeding off somebody else. Because even when KD was there in OKC, KD fed off him. He didn't feed off KD. So I'm not sure if that like kind of had like a mental block on him in some kind of way, shape, or form. But it didn't seem like Chris Paul and James Harden seem much more clean than Westbrook and James Harden, and that's just like the eye test. You know what I mean? Like just that's just from watching it.
Mhm. Well, I think what it might be is that like their play styles, Harden and Westbrook, don't like the thing is like what both of them they can synergize like their play styles can synergize fairly well with other players. Um, but like they wouldn't work. I think this was a concern I think even before the season started. Like they might not necessarily work that well together. It's like they both need the ball, and like the thing is they both need the ball. And Harden will spend a lot of time like doing a bunch of stuff just to like travel into a 3 point shot.
Tune up.
Um, and like Westbrook, like ever since he got in the league, is this thing where it's like he wants to do everything. He wants to do everything all the time. The thing is, while he was in OKC, he got really really good at it. But like I think, and especially like if he's trying to get to a point where like he's competing on like on a championship team with other quality teammates that like aren't like whether they are Super Bowl dominant or not, like he doesn't and probably shouldn't be trying to do everything like he tends to do and tends to want to do.
For sure, for sure.
but I think that's his game. Like in a way, Westbrook is the way he plays is almost like an offense in itself, just because there's going to be so many actions that come off of. There's like no one person I can think of outside of like Drew Holiday or somebody, Patrick Beverly for that point, that can like stop him like every possession, or at least like hold him to something. So
I think one of the things that
he can't shoot for real, so it's hard for him to do anything else besides like go do what you can do.
I just think I don't like it when players can't change their game in the NBA. And not just like, and I'm not saying to change your game for any kind of reasons. I'm just like adjust your game. You know what I mean? Like adjust your game for the betterment of the team. And I think it bothers me when people can't do that because they're so. I don't want to say they're hard headed because I don't know the individuals, but it seems to be hard headed to me that I want the game to adjust to me. I don't want to adjust my game, or I want the team to adjust to me. I don't want to adjust to the team. And that's never a good thing when it comes to winning. And like, yeah, you might make the playoffs. Yeah, you might make it deep in the playoffs, but more than likely you ain't gonna win. Like the whole thing, you know what I mean?
I think saying that almost simplifies it to a point, because you can't convince me that Russell Westbrook doesn't work on his game, or at least is not in the gym. Like, you can't convince me like he doesn't have like some sort of work ethic. Like something has to be. Like, I don't know what it is, but you shoot at this point. Like it's been 12 seasons. You just gotta do what you can do.
But I'm not saying he's gotta adjust.
Athletic dude.
I'm not saying you gotta adjust your game. I'm not saying First of all, I'm not saying like his work ethic's bad. Like I'm not in the gym with that man. I'm saying no, I'm not in the gym with that man. I'm assuming his work ethic's good because he's in the NBA and he's a superstar in the NBA, right? So I'm assuming his work ethic's good. Obviously, like I'm never gonna say a man at that level's work ethic is bad because I'm over here eating chips off my chest. You know what I mean? Like, why would I say that? But you don't need to grab every rebound. You don't need to like play on the ball, play off the ball. Like I hated that with Carmelo too for a while. I didn't hate Carmelo Anthony, but I hated that he didn't adjust his game well enough for other teams. He's still the ISO player with the ball with his hands too much, but he's done it much better. He's done it much better with Portland than he did all the other teams. But and we see the results of that. Let's just say that we see the results of him adjusting. And like, why did he need to seemingly become a journeyman and he need to get knocked out the league or blackballed out the league, whatever, for a year for him to come back and do that? Like, it's unfortunate. Like, he should, first of all, he shouldn't be out of the league for a year, right? Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. He should have been in the league because man, he could have played for, I don't know, what's a trash team? He could have played for the Hornets. You know what I mean? He could have played for the Hornets. He could have, like, easily. Like, he could have got buckets, but for, political reasons, he was out the league for a year. But when he comes back, you do see an adjustment in his game to where it was less of me, ISO, and more of, fluidity of the game. Let's just say that. And he let other people just take over it and flow into the rhythm.
I'll leave you with a philosophical question. What is there to change when your game is your game?
Was that supposed to be deep?
No, it's not supposed to be deep.
Okay.
This is like a question to ponder on. Like, what is
okay.
It is what it is.
I'm all right. Thinking about Westbrook for a second, and like, I'm gonna try and come back to that. That's a very odd question, but like, I think the thing with Westbrook and like why it might be hard for him to change his game, right? Is it like I think this might be a good way to describe it. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but like, he's the ultimate hustle player, if you will. Like, I have to assume, given the kind of stats he'll put up, that he basically likes playing the entire game, pretty much, right? So, like, he gives 110% every time, and in that 110%, there's a lot of skill there, and so, like, he puts up crazy numbers and does everything, but, like, and so, like, one of the issues of trying to change his game, like if I'd imagine if you're the coach is like you almost have to be you basically have to go up to a dude right after preaching. You gotta hustle and do all the dirty stuff and whatever, and like gotta be comfortable with an ugly and this, that, and the third, and be like hustle less. And not only is that a weird hill to have to die on, right? But like it basically undermines everything any player has ever been like told to do for their entire life playing basketball. Um, and so as a coach or what have you, it's just a weird spot to be in with Westbrook. It's kind of like you need to like do less, or at least like focus your energies on certain things more than others. Like you said, you don't necessarily need to like try and grab every rebound because like you on the fast break is kind of serious. Um, but like you're trying to do everything and to force stuff sometimes is not helping you win. Like,
Well, no, that you saying that makes me curious about this question that came to mind.
mm-hmm.
The more successful a basketball player gets, right? Do they become less coachable because of them reaching that position? Because to get to that level, you have to be coachable. But then let's use Westbrook as an example. But then once you get to the NBA and you've been doing a one thing essentially, right? Hustling extra hard and being that guy for 12 years, do you become less coachable because it's ingrained into you at that point?
So I think what it is, right,
Is that a
is that
possibility?
I don't necessarily think it's that you're less coachable. One, I think it's like, of course, this like you get to the NBA and it's like it's grown men now, and like grown men aren't going to behave the same as like college kids or high school kids. But also like I think one of the things like when you get successful, like when you have that success with like your game and whatever, is just like part of the sell of getting someone to change their game is like to be more successful, but it's like but like there's a part of them that's like doing this is what got me here.
Stuck in
And
your ways, right?
hmm,
Stuck in your
well,
way,
I
essentially.
think that's more of a thing like as players get older, like as they like reach about the end of their prime, roughly like mid 30s, or like not mid 30s, but like when they hit 30ish, it's like the thing is like, and like it's not necessarily them. You'll see it in like real life too. It's like the thing is, while change is not always easy, like you can like a player can always adjust their game. Like and a person can always kind of adjust their behavior. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to do, but one of the issues with trying to do that for a lot of people is getting past that block of I am who I am. Which especially with like basketball is like one of those things that gets kind of emphasized for players. Like at a certain point, like everybody talks about like he's just kind of like what you got now is like all you're really gonna get. Like he is who he is. Like there is no improvement, there's no change in the game. He is who he is. And like I think people in general tend to like buy into the whole notion of when they reach a certain point they aren't going to be able to change.
It's so situational too, right? Because it could be a good thing and it could be a bad thing, literally just depending on what situation you're in. And when I say that, like, yeah, LeBron James won a championship this year, right? Like playing the way LeBron James has played for how long has he been in the league? 17 years. Like LeBron James won a championship this year, but but you can make an argument because LeBron James played like LeBron James that he stifled the growth of the team he had in Los Angeles before Anthony Davis got there. And you can kind of see that for how they thrived when they got to New Orleans. Like you can make that argument that it's a good thing or it's a bad thing, but I think it just depends on what the priorities are, right? LeBron James' priorities weren't to make them better. Because if it was making them better, he would play more off the ball. But LeBron James doesn't play off the ball. LeBron James plays on the ball. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, he's like, we're gonna put LeBron James as a point guard. You heard all that, rhetoric after, whatever. And I think it's situational because if LeBron James doesn't get Anthony Davis, that I'm personally still saying that, and that rhetoric is still out there of LeBron James needs to change his game to help elevate his teammates, but he ended up, because of good ownership and good coach or good GMs, that he was put into a different situation to where LeBron James could be LeBron James and be successful. So I think that's when GMs and owners really need to be at their best to put their players in the best situations, so you don't have conversations about this because you're essentially making players like Russell Westbrook, for example, look bad because you're surrounding them or you're putting them in situations to where you're questioning their ability more than the team around them. Does that make sense? Or the situation they're in, I guess.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think that. Well, one, I disagree. I think LeBron's changed his game over time. LeBron of this year.
Added to his game.
I don't know. Probably some of both. It's kind of one. Something I saw recently. One of the things with LeBron is he literally just wasn't in the bubble and what have you. He was literally he wasn't running around as much. One, and which is just an adjustment he's made because he's getting older. Conserve your energy. Pick your spots, right? Which is just a smart thing to do. But even if I say that, I'm not necessarily it's not necessarily he's necessarily changed to accommodate other people. It's kind of it's more of changes to continue doing some version of what you've always done. But in fairness, I'm not really sure how much he got in the way of those young players' development. But he probably didn't help.
The only reason I say that is if you look at them now, are any of those players catch and shoot players? No. LeBron James had the ball in his hands too much in those situations, during that time span, year and a half, 2 years, whatever it was. LeBron James had the ball in his hands too much, and he needed to get the ball. He needed to play off the ball more, and that was a that was a decent consensus amongst smart basketball fans at the time. But once again, he wasn't in that situation long enough to where people question, or the general public, I would say, questioned his mental fortitude or his intellect or his basketball IQ. It's not intellect, his basketball IQ. You know what I mean? So it's interesting that we are even having this conversation about Westbrook, and it's probably a good thing that he might get traded or whatever to put him in a situation to be more successful. Put Westbrook in a situation to where these conversations don't happen. Because in OKC, these conversations weren't happening because he was able to do his thing. Russell Westbrook's not a tier 1 or tier 2 player. He's not a B player. He's an A player, a tier 1 player who needs to run a team. That's what he is. That's what's in him. So instead of putting him in situations to where we're over here saying, he needs to adjust his game, or can he adjust his game? Just the questioning of can he adjust his game, he needs to be in a situation to where his game thrives.
So the Clippers.
But the thing is, I don't think he would thrive as a Clipper because Paul George could play off of him. Can Paul George win off of him? No. But Paul George can play off of him. You know what I mean? When I say win, I mean championship. Not win.
It's not like they did it last year.
I know, but then I don't think Kawhi, which, if Russell Westbrook on that team, Kawhi is the number 1 player. He is. I don't think Kawhi in a team that Kawhi is on needs a point guard like Russell Westbrook. I think they need different. Like Russell Westbrook, like we said, is an ultimate hustle player. He will get points, rebounds, assists. He will do everything. Kawhi teams where he's successful, they have individuals who do certain things, right? They have individuals who know their own games and stick to their spots. You know what I mean? Like you have their centers, they act like centers. The point guards, they act like point guards. The power forwards, they act like he's never won on a team where everybody's doing too much. The issue that I think they had last year is that one, I think they took a lot of the grind of like the regular season. I think they take a lot for granted. Let's just say that. I think they took a lot for granted. And I also think that they had a lot of players who just didn't know their role. They want like I was listening to Gilbert Arenas' podcast, and he was like, when you look at the Clippers at the end of the game, who's taking the final shot? You want to say Kawhi, but a lot of times Kawhi didn't take the shot at the end of the game, and that's one example of people knowing. That's one example of people knowing their roles. You know what I mean? And I just think that the Clippers didn't know enough of their roles last year in terms of role players. So I don't think Westbrook is like the answer, I guess. But Westbrook probably needs to honestly. Westbrook probably I don't. If I had to think about it off the top of my head real quickly, I don't know the perfect situation for Westbrook in 2020. Like right now, I don't know the perfect situation for him to be the most successful. I think a lot of the situations on NBA teams are kind of the same. Like not necessarily the same, but like they have a direction they're going in, and I don't know where Westbrook could just be placed there, and all of a sudden, boom, they're getting better. Like if Drew Holiday wasn't in Milwaukee, you could make the argument for Milwaukee, but they got Drew Holiday now, and he's gonna defensively, he makes way more sense than Westbrook does. You know what I mean? So I'm not quite sure where he could just be dropped off and it'd be like a automatic benefit. Obviously, and I'm not talking about like the Hornets or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm talking about like teams that actually matter.
Right.
It all depends on what you measure success by. Because if you're talking about winning a championship, that margin is very slim.
Yeah.
I mean, last thing is, Westbrook championship. Like successful Westbrook is championship. Westbrook's been in the league long enough, and he's had enough success that he can't just like successful. A Westbrook team is not first round of the playoffs or make the playoffs, first round of the playoffs, or the final, or the Western Conference Finals or Eastern Conference Finals. It's the finals. Like Westbrook needs to win a chip, especially since he's already been there. You know what I mean? Harden, same thing. Harden needs to win a championship. Like KD already did, even though people don't like the way he did it, including me. He did at the end of the day. You know what I mean? He at the end of the day he won a championship. But these guys are on that same level, just needs to win a championship. So anything under that is not a success.
That's fair. Quick question.